Right now, somewhere in your body, something is hurting. Not a bruise, not a headache. Something quieter than that. A hollow ache you cannot point to. And if you have felt it lately, you are not broken. You are running very ancient software on a very modern problem. This is the story of loneliness, not the feeling, the biology. And the answer is far stranger and far more unsettling than you have been told. You probably think of loneliness as an emotion, a mood, something that passes. But neuroscientists and evolutionary biologists have spent decades studying what happens inside a lonely body, and what they found rewired how we understand pain itself. Because loneliness does not behave like sadness, it does not behave like grief or frustration or anxiety. Loneliness behaves like a physical wound, and your body treats it like one. Here is what that means for you. In 2008, a researcher named John Cacioppo at the University of Chicago published findings that would permanently change how the scientific community thought about social isolation. Cacioppo had spent years measuring the biological markers of loneliness in human subjects, not self-reported unhappiness, actual measurable physiology. And what he found was this: lonely people had fundamentally different bodies than connected people. Their cortisol levels ran higher. Their immune systems were suppressed. Their cardiovascular systems were under chronic low-grade stress. Their DNA was aging faster. The cells of a lonely person were literally wearing out sooner. Not metaphorically, literally. Your body, when it feels cut off from other humans, does not simply feel sad. It switches into a different operating mode entirely. To understand why, you have to go back. Not 50 years, not 100 years. You have to go back to a time before cities, before language, before fire was even reliable. You have to go back to when your ancestors were small, soft, slow creatures surrounded by things that wanted to eat them. Picture your ancestor. No claws, no armor, no venom, average sprinting speed of 12 miles per hour, which, by the way, is enough to lose a race to a golden retriever. Your ancestors survived not because of individual power, but because of the group. The group spotted the predator. The group shared the food. The group kept watch through the night. Alone, your ancestor was a snack. Together, your ancestors became the dominant species on the planet. Your nervous system learned this lesson so thoroughly that it built it directly into your threat detection hardware. When you feel socially disconnected, your amygdala, the ancient alarm system at the base of your brain, does not register a mild discomfort and file it away. It registers a survival threat. It lights up the same neural pathways that respond to physical danger. Being left out at the office party and being stalked by a predator produce overlapping brain signatures. Not identical, but overlapping. And that overlap is not an accident. It is the design. Naomi Eisenberger at UCLA demonstrated this in a study that became famous in neuroscience circles precisely because of how absurd it sounds on the surface. She placed subjects inside an fMRI scanner and had them play a simple virtual ball-tossing game with what they believed were two other real players. Partway through the game, the other players simply stopped throwing the ball to the subject. Just stopped including them. And when that happened, when a person was socially excluded in a video game, the dorsal anterior cingulate cortex lit up. That is the same region that processes physical pain. Being left out of a ball-tossing game hurt your brain the same way stubbing your toe does. Not as intensely, but in the same place, the same circuitry, the same ancient alarm. Your body has not caught up to the modern world. It does not know that being excluded from the work Slack channel is not a death sentence. It does not know that eating lunch alone does not mean you will be picked off by something large and hungry at sundown. It only knows the signal. You are outside the group, and it responds accordingly. Now here is where it gets genuinely interesting, and a little cruel. Cacioppo and his colleagues discovered what they called the loneliness loop. When your threat detection system activates because of social disconnection, it does not just make you sad. It actually changes how you perceive the social world around you. Lonely people are measurably more likely to interpret ambiguous social signals as threatening. A neutral facial expression reads as hostile. A canceled plan reads as rejection. A short text message reads as cold indifference. Your brain, running in threat mode, starts scanning the environment for evidence that you are right to feel unsafe. And because it is very good at finding what it is looking for, it finds it. So your behavior changes. You pull back slightly, you cancel plans, you stop reaching out. The very mechanism designed to push you back toward connection ends up pushing you further from it. You become, in a measurable biological sense, harder to connect with. Not because you want to be, but because your nervous system has decided that protection is more urgent than repair. This is not weakness. This is ancient hardware running a very reasonable ancient program in a very unreasonable modern world. Robert Cacioppo, John's son, who followed him into the same research field, which is either touching or a sign of something deeply unresolved, later described loneliness as a condition that compounds itself. The longer it persists, the more deeply the threat perception patterns entrench. The more entrenched they are, the harder it becomes to disrupt them. This is why well-meaning advice like just put yourself out there so often fails. You cannot simply override a system that is running 1,000 generations deep by deciding to go to a networking event. But here is what matters: what the biology actually suggests about getting out. The research points to something specific. It is not quantity of social contact that reverses the loneliness signal. It is quality and safety. Cacioppo's work consistently showed that one close relationship, one person with whom you felt genuinely safe and genuinely known, had disproportionate power to regulate the nervous system. Not 20 acquaintances, not hundreds of followers. One person, maybe two, where the threat system reads the signal as safe and lowers the alarm. Your ancestors did not need a village of hundreds to feel connected. They needed a small band of trusted others, 6 to 15 people, according to evolutionary anthropologist Robin Dunbar, whose research on social group sizes in primates and humans has been widely cited for good reason. Dunbar found that humans have a consistent cognitive limit of roughly 150 meaningful relationships, but within that, a tight inner circle of 5 to 15 that drives actual well-being. The outer network is noise. The inner circle is survival infrastructure. You do not need to be socially popular. You need to be genuinely known by a few. That is the difference between managing the signal and silencing it. And here is the last thing the research tells you, the part that rewrites how you think about your own past loneliness. When you have felt that hollow ache, the one with no name, no specific cause, no obvious cure, your body was not malfunctioning. It was working exactly as designed. It was sending you a message that your ancestors heard 10,000 years ago, sitting at the edge of the firelight, scanning the dark. Get back to the people. You are not safe alone. Come in closer. The fire has changed. The people are harder to find in the crowd. The signal never stopped. Tonight, when that quiet ache shows up again, you will know what it is. Not a flaw, not a failure. A very old alarm, still doing its job in a world it was never built for.